What if I told you that the most impactful decision of your entire life isn't about your career, your relationships, or your goals? It's about you. Most people spend their lives waiting for change, but the truth is, the moment you decide to own your life completely, everything shifts. Your confidence, your purpose, your power. Because the one decision you've been avoiding is the only one that could change everything. So what happens when you finally make it? Stay with me. We'll explain everything in this video, step by step. Don't skip it. There comes a moment in every person's life when everything changes. Not because life suddenly got easier, not because the circumstances magically aligned, but because in that moment you made a decision. Not a wish, not a hope, a real decision, one that cut off every other possibility. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, the most impactful decision you will ever make. It's not where you'll work. It's not who you'll marry. It's not how much money you'll make. The most impactful decision you will ever make is the decision to own your life completely, to stop waiting for someone to save you, to stop blaming the world, your parents, your past, your pain, to stand up and say, no more. My life is my responsibility, and from this moment on, I decide who I become. That's the turning point. That's the birth of power. Because when you truly decide to own your life, everything changes. The excuses dissolve. The fear loses its grip. The uncertainty becomes fuel. See, most people never decide. They drift. They go where the wind blows, where the world pushes. They settle for good enough because they're afraid to demand extraordinary. But those who rise, those who change everything, they decide. They say, I'm done living small. I'm done waiting for permission. I'm done apologizing for wanting more. And when that decision is made, your identity shifts because your life is not controlled by your conditions. It's controlled by your choices. Every time you choose courage over comfort, discipline over distraction, growth over fear, you reshape who you are. Think about it all. Progress begins with a single decision. The decision to start, the decision to fight back, the decision to believe again. Maybe you've been knocked down. Maybe life hasn't been fair. Maybe you've lost faith in yourself. But right here, right now, you can make a decision that changes everything. Decide to rise. Decide to live as if your life truly matters. Because it does. Decide to bring passion where others bring excuses. Decide to become unstoppable. And when you do, you'll realize something powerful, that the world doesn't change when your circumstances do. It changes when you do. So today isn't just another day. It's a doorway. You can step through it and never be the same again. The most impactful decision you will ever make is to claim your power back, to live fully awake, and to become the author of your destiny. Because the moment you decide who you are, the world will adjust. Now, ownership is power because it's the moment you stop handing your life over to circumstances, excuses, and other people's opinions. It's the moment you decide to stand at the center of your story and declare that nothing outside of you has control over your inner world. The truth is, most people never experience real freedom because they never take ownership. They wait. They wait for motivation, for opportunities, for validation, and for someone to show them the way. But ownership isn't about waiting. It's about claiming. It's about understanding that everything you need to begin is already inside of you. The resources, the creativity, the resilience, the courage, they're there. They're buried under layers of doubt and fear, but the second you take ownership, those layers begin to peel away. When you take ownership, you stop saying, I can't because, and start saying, I will find a way. You stop being a victim of life and become a creator of it. People who live in ownership don't blame their past for their pain. They use their pain as fuel to grow. They don't say, I was born in the wrong environment. They say, that environment made me stronger. Ownership is the bridge between powerlessness and potential. It's not about perfection. It's about responsibility. It's about saying, I might not control everything that happens to me, but I absolutely control how I respond to it. When you embrace this truth, you stop negotiating with your limitations. You stop giving energy to the stories that keep you small. You stop pointing fingers at who hurt you, who left you, who doubted you, because you realize that as long as you're pointing fingers outward, you're giving away your strength inward. Ownership flips that script. It says, if it's to be, it's up to me. That single mindset shift turns chaos into clarity, pain into purpose, confusion into direction. Most people think their life is shaped by what they experience, but it's actually shaped by what they decide to take ownership of. You can have two people experience the same setback. One will crumble, the other will rise. The difference isn't luck, talent, or circumstance. It's ownership. One person says, this isn't fair, while the other says, this is my chance to rise higher. Ownership is a decision that separates those who endure life from those who lead it. You can't lead what you don't own. You can't change what you keep blaming. The moment you say, I own this, you reclaim the power to improve it. Think about it. The areas of your life where you're thriving right now are the areas you've taken ownership of. Maybe it's your health, your mindset, your relationships, your craft. Somewhere along the way, you stopped making excuses in that area. You got serious. You said, this matters to me, and you started acting like it. That's ownership in motion. And the areas of your life that cause you the most frustration are usually the ones you've been avoiding responsibility for. Maybe you've told yourself, that's just how it is, or there's nothing I can do. But deep down, you know that's not true. Deep down, you know you're capable of more if you just stop outsourcing control to the world around you. Ownership demands honesty. You can't transform what you're not willing to confront. It means looking in the mirror and saying, yes, I created this result, and if I created it, I can create something better. It's not easy because it means no more hiding behind stories, no more blaming the economy, no more blaming the system, no more blaming other people's choices. But it's powerful because once you face the truth, you can rewrite it. Ownership is the foundation of freedom. It's where real confidence begins. Because confidence doesn't come from pretending you have it all figured out. It comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you'll find a way to figure it out. When you live with ownership, you stop being reactive and start being intentional. You stop waiting for life to happen and start designing it. You become the cause, not the effect. You realize that the world responds to your energy, your commitment, your consistency. Every time you choose to take responsibility, you send a signal to the universe that you're ready for more. Opportunities don't come to those who wish. They come to those who are prepared, those who act, those who take ownership of their growth. Ownership also changes the way you view failure. When you take full responsibility for your life, you no longer see failure as final. You see it as feedback. You learn from it, you grow from it, you use it. You understand that the outcome doesn't define you, your response does. Every setback becomes a stepping stone, every challenge a classroom. You stop fearing mistakes because you know they're part of the path. Ownership removes the need to be perfect. It replaces perfectionism with progress. It reminds you that you're not here to impress people. You're here to impact yourself first. The truth is, ownership feels heavy at first because it strips away your excuses. It forces you to confront the fact that no one is coming to save you. But it's also liberating because the moment you stop waiting for rescue, you start building your own strength. You stop chasing approval and you start chasing growth. Ownership makes you the hero of your own story, not the extra in someone else's. It's a shift that changes how you think, how you feel, how you act. When something goes wrong, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? You ask, what can I learn from this? When someone lets you down, you don't spiral into blame. You ask, what standard did I allow? What boundary did I fail to set? Ownership gives you control over your emotional state, your focus, and your energy. It trains you to stop reacting and start creating. You begin to realize that every decision, every action, and every thought is either moving you closer to the life you want or further away from it. And when you know that, you start choosing differently. You stop tolerating the things that drain you. You start investing in the things that build you. You begin to live with awareness, purpose, and conviction. Ownership makes you see that your life is not happening at random. It's a reflection of what you've accepted, what you've allowed, and what you've created. The beautiful part is ownership doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It asks you to stop escaping your reality and start engaging with it. To look at your habits, your thoughts, your relationships and ask, is this truly serving me? If not, you have the power to change it. Not tomorrow, not someday now. Because the second you take ownership, you activate the most powerful force in existence, your ability to choose again. No matter what has happened, no matter where you come from, you can choose a new direction. You can decide that your story doesn't end in the same pain it began in. You can rewrite the narrative, but it starts with one powerful declaration. I am responsible for my life. That's the sentence that wakes you up. That's the sentence that moves you from powerless to powerful. That's the sentence that turns potential into progress. Ownership is the birthplace of personal revolution, because when you own your life, you stop waiting for change. You become the change itself. Decisions define destiny, because every turning point in your life begins with a single choice. It's not the conditions that shape your future. It's the decisions you make in the moments that test you, stretch you, and force you to face who you really are. The truth is, destiny isn't something that just happens to you. It's something you design one decision at a time. Every major shift, every breakthrough, every transformation begins when you draw a line in the sand and say, enough. This is where everything changes. It's that inner declaration that separates those who drift through life from those who direct it. Most people underestimate the power of a single decision because they think change has to be massive, dramatic, or public. But destiny doesn't respond to noise. It responds to commitment. It responds to the quiet, unshakable decision you make when no one's watching, when it's just you, your doubts, and your determination. You see, decisions are the architecture of your life. Every choice you've made has built the foundation you stand on today. The job you took, the people you kept, the habits you formed, the beliefs you accepted, they all started with a decision. And the most dangerous decision of all is indecision, because it hands your power to time, to circumstance, to chance. When you don't decide, you drift. And when you drift, you end up somewhere you never intended to be. The truth is, not deciding is still a decision. It's a decision to let life make choices for you. Every day, you're faced with hundreds of small moments where you have the chance to decide who you are. Do you hit snooze or do you get up? Do you face your fear or do you run from it? Do you speak your truth or stay silent? These tiny moments might seem insignificant, but they stack. They build momentum. And over time, they create a pattern that becomes your life. Your destiny isn't written by fate. It's written by patterns of decision repeated daily. That's why one powerful decision can alter the trajectory of your entire existence. It can break cycles that have lasted years. It can rewrite stories that were handed to you by generations before you. One decision to change your standards, to shift your focus, to demand more from yourself can completely redefine who you become. People often say they want a new life, but what they really need is a new decision. The decision to stop living on autopilot. The decision to stop settling for what's familiar and start reaching for what's possible. Because the moment you decide, your energy changes, your focus sharpens, your actions align. Decision brings clarity, and clarity brings power. When you decide what you truly want and you eliminate everything that doesn't serve it, you start to see that indecision is the enemy of growth, because it keeps you trapped in hesitation and fear. Fear feeds on uncertainty, but when you decide, fear loses its grip. You silence that inner voice that says, what if I fail? And replace it with, what if this changes everything? Your destiny is defined not by the decisions that are easy, but by the ones that are uncomfortable. The ones that require courage, sacrifice, and trust in yourself. The ones that demand you step into the unknown without a guarantee of success. Those are the moments that shape you. Because the truth is, if you only make decisions when it's convenient, you'll never grow beyond what's comfortable. Growth requires risk, and risk requires decision. And the people who create extraordinary lives aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They're simply the ones who decided not to quit when it got hard, who decided to believe when no one else did, who decided to rise when everything inside them said stay down. There's power in the word decide. It comes from the Latin word decidere, which means to cut off. When you make a true decision, you cut off every other possibility. You stop entertaining backup plans. You stop negotiating with your limits, and you commit fully. Most people don't actually decide. They dabble. They say they want to change, but they leave the back door open for failure. Real decision is when you burn the boats. It's when you commit to the outcome so completely that retreat is no longer an option. That's when the universe starts moving in your favor, because life responds to clarity and conviction. The moment you decide with full certainty, everything begins to align with that choice. Opportunities appear, resources show up, people cross your path, and momentum starts to build. But the longer you hesitate, the more energy you lose. Indecision drains power. It creates confusion, frustration, and self-doubt. It makes you question your instincts, your path, your purpose. That's why you must train yourself to decide quickly and commit completely. Successful people are not always right, but they are always decisive. They trust their gut, they make a choice, and they adjust as they go, because they understand that progress comes from movement, not perfection. The worst decision is no decision. Every time you make a decision that aligns with your higher self, you reinforce a new identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who leads, someone who acts, someone who creates. And identity is the invisible force that shapes destiny. Because once you believe you are someone who decides with conviction, you start living like it. You stop waiting for permission. You stop needing reassurance. You start owning your direction. You become the driver instead of the passenger. Sometimes the most powerful decisions are made in silence. They happen in those private moments when you're tired of your own excuses. When you're done blaming the world and you whisper to yourself, no more. That whisper is louder than any speech because it's born from truth. It's the sound of your soul taking back control. That's where destiny begins, in the quiet decision to rise, to change, to take charge. Every breakthrough story, every comeback, every success you admire started with that kind of moment. Someone decided they weren't going to live like that anymore. They decided to try again. They decided to believe in their vision even when it looked impossible. They decided to keep going when everyone else gave up. The decision was made long before the results ever showed. That's what makes it powerful. Decision plants the seed, and time reveals the fruit. You might not always see the impact of your decisions immediately, but they're compounding behind the scenes. Each decision you make to stay disciplined, to focus, to improve adds up. And then one day you wake up in a completely different life, not because luck struck, but because you decided your way there. Destiny doesn't come from one massive leap. It comes from thousands of small, intentional decisions made with purpose. The moment you understand this, you stop chasing certainty and start embracing choice. You realize that no decision is truly final except the one you refuse to make. You stop fearing the wrong choice because you know that every choice teaches, every outcome guides. There's no failure when you're moving forward. Every decision is shaping your character, building your resilience, and preparing you for what's next. Destiny is not waiting somewhere in the future. It's being built right now with every decision you make today. The decision to show up, the decision to keep your promises, the decision to give more than you take, the decision to live intentionally. These are the choices that carve your future. When you truly understand that decisions define destiny, you start making them from a place of power, not fear. You stop asking, what if it doesn't work? And start asking, what if this is the decision that changes everything? Identity creates reality because who you believe you are determines what you allow, what you pursue, and what you create. Every action you take, every word you speak, every goal you chase is filtered through the story you tell yourself about who you are. And if deep down you believe you're not enough, you'll find a way to sabotage every opportunity that proves otherwise. If you believe you're destined for more, you'll rise from every failure with even greater strength. Your life is a mirror, and it reflects not what you want, but what you believe you deserve. Identity is the invisible hand that shapes your destiny. You don't get what you dream of. You get what aligns with your self-image. The reason so many people struggle to change their life is because they try to change their behavior without changing their identity. They focus on the symptoms instead of the source. They say, I want to be successful. But their inner voice still whispers, I'm not the kind of person who wins. They try to build confidence without first believing they're worthy of it. But the truth is, your outer world will never outperform your inner identity. You can force change for a while through willpower, but it won't last unless it becomes who you are. The shift happens when you stop chasing outcomes and start redefining yourself at the core. When you move from I want to be to I am, that's when transformation becomes permanent. Every belief you hold about yourself acts like a command to your brain. If you tell yourself you're lazy, your brain finds reasons to avoid effort. If you tell yourself you're disciplined, your brain looks for ways to stay consistent. The mind always works to prove your identity true. That's why the most powerful thing you can ever say is, this is who I am. When you declare something about yourself with certainty, you begin to live into it. Your identity becomes your internal thermostat. You can achieve temporary success through motivation. But if it doesn't match your internal settings, you'll always find a way to return to who you believe yourself to be. Raise your identity, and your results will rise with it. Identity isn't built in a day. It's built in the choices you make every single day. Every time you do something that aligns with the person you want to become, you cast a vote for that identity. When you show up even when it's hard, when you keep your word, when you follow through, you're not just accomplishing tasks, you're reinforcing a belief that says, I'm the kind of person who follows through. It's not the big, dramatic moments that define you. It's the small, consistent ones that build your sense of self. Each action either strengthens or weakens the identity you're creating. That's why consistency matters. It's not just discipline, it's identity training. Most people live trapped in identities that were never consciously chosen. They were shaped by other people's opinions, past experiences, or moments of pain. Someone told them they weren't smart enough, strong enough, talented enough, and they believed it. Over time, those words became internal truths. But those truths are illusions. They're stories that were repeated until they became familiar. The good news is if an identity was learned, it can be unlearned. You can rewrite the script. You can decide right now who you choose to be. You can stop saying, this is just the way I am, and start asking, who do I want to become? When you change your identity, you change your standards. You stop tolerating things that don't match the person you're becoming. You stop engaging in habits that belong to your old self. You start surrounding yourself with people who reinforce your new direction. Identity is contagious. It influences who you attract, what you accept, and how you act. If your current environment doesn't match your desired identity, it will try to pull you back. That's why growth often feels lonely. You're breaking away from an identity that no longer fits. But that discomfort is proof that you're evolving. Your identity also determines your resilience. When you identify as someone who is strong, capable, and resourceful, setbacks don't break you, they build you. You stop seeing failure as evidence of weakness and start seeing it as part of your process. Because when your identity is strong, your emotions don't control you. You operate from a sense of certainty instead of insecurity. You start saying, this challenge is temporary, but who I am is permanent. That belief gives you power in every situation. The most successful people don't have perfect circumstances, and they have powerful identities. They decide who they are before the world does. They say, I'm a leader. long before anyone calls them one. They say, I'm a winner, long before they have trophies to prove it. Their identity comes first and their results follow. You can't wait for success to prove your worth. You must believe in your worth first, and success will follow that belief. The world reflects back what you project out. You might have been told to fake it till you make it, but the truth is deeper than that. You're not faking it. You're training your identity, and you're practicing being the person you've decided to become. Over time, that practice becomes natural, effortless, automatic. The actions you once had to force become habits, and those habits become who you are. The goal is to close the gap between your current behavior and your future identity until they become one and the same. And your words play a huge role in shaping your identity. Every time you say, I'm not good at this, or I always mess things up, you reinforce limitations. Your language creates labels, and those labels become cages. But the moment you change your language, you begin to break free. Replace, I can't, with, I'm learning. Replace, I'm not disciplined, with, I'm becoming consistent. It might sound small, but language directs focus, and focus directs energy. What you repeatedly say about yourself, you start to believe, and what you believe, you live. Your identity also controls your vision. If your identity is small, your vision will be limited. You won't dream big because you won't believe you're capable of handling it. But when you elevate your identity, your vision expands naturally. You start asking bigger questions, setting bigger goals, and taking bigger actions. You stop saying, can I do this? And start saying, how can I make this happen? The level of your life will never exceed the level of your self-concept. To truly transform your life, you have to make identity the foundation of everything you do. Before you set a goal, ask yourself, who must I become to achieve this? Because goals without identity alignment create resistance. You might hit the target temporarily, but you'll slide back if your self-image doesn't match it. Permanent change happens when your habits and your identity are in harmony. When your inner world and outer world tell the same story, growth becomes effortless. The beautiful thing about identity is that it's fluid. You're not stuck with who you were yesterday. You can decide right now to be a person of courage, of discipline, of purpose. You can decide to be someone who keeps promises, someone who takes action, someone who shows up no matter what. You don't need anyone's permission to become that person. You just need a decision and repetition. Every time you act in alignment with that new identity, it grows stronger until it becomes second nature. Your identity creates your destiny because it filters every possibility that life offers. If you believe you're limited, you won't see opportunities even when they're right in front of you. But if you believe you're capable, you'll find a way through any obstacle. You'll interpret challenges as invitations, not punishments. You'll approach life with the mindset of a creator instead of a spectator. Identity doesn't just shape how you see yourself. It shapes how you see the world. And when you change the lens, everything you look at begins to shift in response. Action transforms everything because nothing changes until you move. You can think and you can plan, you can visualize, but until you act, everything remains potential. The world doesn't respond to intentions. It responds to execution. Dreams stay dreams until you take that first step, and that step, no matter how small, begins to shift the entire direction of your life. Action is the bridge between who you are and who you can become. It's the evidence of belief. When you take action, you tell the universe, I'm ready. You tell your mind, we're doing this. And that one move begins to build momentum that thinking alone could never create. Most people spend their lives waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect level of confidence before they start. But perfection never comes. The people who achieve extraordinary things don't wait for certainty. They create it through action. They understand that clarity doesn't come from sitting still. It comes from doing. Every step forward reveals the next. You can't steer a parked car and you can't guide a stagnant life. Once you're in motion, you can adjust, adapt, and refine. But you must first move. Action is how you break through fear. Fear loses power when faced with movement. When you're sitting still, your mind creates 1,000 stories about what could go wrong. But when you take a step, even a small one, those stories begin to fade because action replaces imagination with experience. You start realizing that the monster in your mind was never as big as you thought. Fear feeds on inaction, it grows in stillness. But courage is born in motion. Every time you act despite fear, you prove to yourself that you're stronger than what scares you. Action also builds confidence. Confidence doesn't come from words, affirmations, or wishes. It comes from results. When you act, you collect evidence that you can. You stop needing to convince yourself because your actions start proving your capability. Every completed task, every risk taken, every challenge faced becomes a brick in the foundation of your self-belief. You start seeing yourself as someone who follows through, someone who finishes, someone who makes things happen. Confidence isn't a gift, it's a muscle. And the only way to strengthen it is through repetition of action. And the difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck isn't opportunity, it's follow through. Everyone has ideas. Everyone has moments of inspiration. But few have the discipline to act when the motivation fades. Action requires consistency, not just excitement. It's easy to start when it feels good. It's harder to keep going when it gets hard. But that's where growth lives, in the discomfort of sustained effort. Those who act consistently, even when it's inconvenient, create momentum that compounds over time. Action compounds. One small step a day doesn't look like much, but over weeks, months, and years, it builds empires. You can read all the books, attend all the seminars, and gather all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't apply it, it's worthless. Information without implementation is just entertainment. The world rewards those who act on what they know, not those who simply know. You don't need to have everything figured out to start. You just need the courage to take the first step. Progress isn't about knowing the whole path. It's about trusting yourself enough to take the next step. And when you do, life meets you halfway. Opportunities, resources, and people begin to appear, but only after you show your commitment through action. Action also breaks the illusion of overwhelm. When a goal feels too big, it paralyzes you. You look at the mountain and think, how will I ever climb that? But when you take one step, the mountain shrinks. Action creates focus. It takes 1,000 scattered thoughts and channels them into movement. You stop drowning in possibilities and start gaining traction in reality. The first step is always the hardest, but once you take it, the next one becomes clearer. Progress builds focus, and focus builds progress. There's a rhythm to action that creates momentum. Once you begin, the energy starts to shift. You start to see small wins, and those wins build enthusiasm. You begin to realize that progress, not perfection, is what matters most. You don't need to run a marathon today. You just need to start walking. You don't need to finish the book today. You just need to write the first paragraph. The smallest consistent action always outweighs the biggest unfulfilled intention, because every step forward, no matter how small, changes your trajectory. Action is also the great equalizer. It doesn't care about your background, your education, or your resources. It rewards anyone willing to move. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to show up. Action turns ordinary people into extraordinary examples. History isn't written by the thinkers. It's written by the doers. The world remembers those who acted when others hesitated, those who moved when others waited for permission. Procrastination disguises itself as preparation. It convinces you that you're not ready yet, that you need more time, more research, more confidence. But the truth is, readiness comes from doing, not from waiting. Every expert you admire once started as a beginner who decided to act before they felt ready. The sooner you start, the sooner you grow. Every delay is a lost opportunity for progress. You can't learn to swim by standing at the edge of the pool. You have to jump in. Action also transforms your emotional state. When you're stuck in overthinking or self-doubt, move. When you feel unmotivated or lost, move. Motion creates emotion. You can't think your way out of a negative state, but you can move your way out of it. Physical movement changes your mental momentum. That's why some of your best ideas come when you're walking, exercising, or just taking action. Movement creates clarity. It's not about waiting for inspiration. It's about moving until inspiration finds you. The truth is, action doesn't guarantee success, but inaction guarantees failure. Every person who has achieved something great failed more times than most people even tried. But through action, they learned, adapted, and grew. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the process of it. Each action teaches you something, and that lesson becomes fuel for the next step. You refine, you adjust, you evolve. That's how mastery is built, not through perfection, but through persistence. When you commit to consistent action, you begin to trust yourself. You stop breaking promises to your own potential. You start realizing that self-respect is built through follow through. When you say you'll do something and you actually do it, you strengthen your relationship with yourself. That's where integrity and confidence come from. Keeping the promises you make to you. Action is how you turn words into truth. Action also attracts momentum from the outside world. People are drawn to movement, to energy, to someone who's doing something. Opportunities tend to appear when you're already in motion. It's as if life rewards movement with synchronicity. The right people, the right timing, and the right doors start opening, but only once you've started walking. Action is the signal to the world that you're serious about your intentions. You'll never eliminate uncertainty, but you can move through it. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to trust the next step. Action builds faith because it replaces I hope with I'm doing. Hope is passive, action is power. When you act, you take control of your destiny. You no longer wait for the world to change. You become the catalyst of change. Action transforms not just your circumstances, but your identity. Every time you move, you reinforce the belief that you're capable. You become the type of person who takes initiative, who doesn't wait, who leads instead of follows. You stop being defined by what you plan to do and start being defined by what you've done. Action turns potential into progress, vision into reality, intention into impact. It is the difference between dreaming and becoming. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe